Introducing Diego Chico Corrales, José Luis El Temible Castillo.
In the world of boxing, war is the easiest promise to make. Promoters guarantee it, posters spell it out, yet fans have learned to be skeptical after too many nights that underdelivered. But on May 7th, 2005, Diego Corrales and José Luis Castillo kept their promise, fashioning their shared trauma into a night that would etch itself forever in boxing's history books. Diego Chico Corrales was a fighter forged in chaos.
Diego Chico Corrales. Diego Chico Corrales.
That was another intense one from Chico. That's why we love you.
A tall, vicious puncher who could box when he chose to, but thrived in a dogfight. After his career had been knocked off course by losses, scandal, and prison time, Corrales was out to prove that pain could be repurposed into glory. With legendary trainer Joe Goosen at his side, Corrales had rebuilt his career from the rubble.
If you could change something about Joe Goosen, what would you change?
I would dress him different because...
Diego Chico Corrales, very personable outside the ring, transforms himself into one of the fiercest fighters going today. He said he'd walk through hell to beat Castillo. That may truly have to happen.
Across from him stood José Luis Castillo, the product of Sinaloa's harsh environment and countless sparring rounds with Julio Cesar Chavez. Never dropped in 59 professional fights, Castillo's approach was the stereotypical Mexican style. Forward pressure, a mean left hook, and relentless body punching. Backed by a loyal crowd and a reputation for durability, he entered the ring prepared to test Corrales the only way he knew how.
So that the square-jawed Castillo never down in 59 pro fights, 15 years of action, but he's never gone up against the power of Diego Corrales. Castillo says he welcomes Corrales. He is extremely bold, feels he's got the beard to stand up to Chico's heavy fists, even invites a toe-to-toe brawl.
By the time their final instructions were given at center ring, the hype and expectation pulsed through the arena. All that remained was Corrales, Castillo, and 12 scheduled rounds to create their piece of shared history.
I think this fight is absolutely about as even as you could get. It is so even, in fact, that experts are very divided about who the winner will be. But most boxing pundits do agree on one thing, that for Corrales, good strategy and technique are just a bit more important.
Whatever game plan Corrales had quickly dissipated after the first exchange. He stepped forward with his jab, stabbing high and low, looking for space to land his right hand. But Corrales refused to cede ground, returning fire with brutal left hooks to the ribs. They took turns with their combinations, trading punishing hooks to the head and body. Within moments, the pair clashed chest to chest, exchanging punishment at a range and pace that left no time for planning. The commentators cautioned, "Don't hook with a hooker," as Corrales tried to match his opponent with the very punch that made him dangerous. Any slim-lasting notion that this fight may not live up to expectations was quickly forgotten. Tonight, retreat was no option. The combatants stood in the pocket for volleys of leather, each solid connection drawing thunderous appreciation from the arena. The crowd was already getting exactly what they paid to see. And with this pace, everyone quietly wondered how long they could possibly keep it up. The second round picked right up where the first one left off. Diego, intent on testing José's famous durability, took to the center and unleashed power shots as soon as he could, marching right back into the phone booth, refusing to clinch, and making sure to leave no punch unanswered. And then, Corrales found a home for his own left hook that rocked Castillo onto his heels. but the reply was instant and ferocious, as if to erase any memory that it had happened. Near the end of the round, Diego once again rocked his adversary with a left hook to finish a combination. Castillo, true to form, gritted his mouthpiece and fired back in defiance, letting him know that it would take a lot more to crack his legendary chin. As the bell rang for the third round, Corrales jumped Castillo with an urgent fury, looking to capitalize on any lingering effects from the previous round's damage. Exchanges on the inside were violent and constant. Left hooks to the head and body were punctuated with uppercuts or looping right hands. The two traded with reckless abandon, eating flush shots that would have dropped lesser men. But Diego refused to be denied, trudging through blood and brutal right uppercuts just to keep on the pressure. Even still, constant phone booth fighting had trade-offs. Even though he had the reach advantage, Corrales was turning everything into a shootout, ignoring the safer, long-range options he was blessed with. In the closing seconds of the round, Castillo finally made him pay, finding his range and rattling Corrales with a combination that took his legs away and sent him staggering to the corner. He'd gotten greedy, disrespected Castillo's power, and lost sight of the plan. The jolt was enough to send him into the fourth with a renewed appreciation for distance. Early in round 4, Corrales started to remember the strategy: jab, box, keep the fight long, and set up the right hands. The exchanges on the inside remained violent and frequent, but an occasional step back permitted room to fire straight shots and pick at Castillo from safety. But with pride on the line, he couldn't help himself from firing back every time he got touched, dragging him right back into the brutal range the early rounds had set. As the two continued trading violent left hooks, the visible cuts on each man served as a crimson illustration of their will to win. Corrales continued to box from the outside to great success early in the fifth, but after a few sharp counters, Diego's patience snapped. Boxing felt too slow. He abandoned the safer route and plunged right back into a full-blown war. Attempting to score these rounds would prove to be an exercise in frustration, the relentless trades of momentum, with both men surging and rallying in turn, made it impossible for observers to separate them. Most were swept up in the action, rather than trying to pick a winner. Press row scorecards reflected an even contest, but few in the arena believed this fight would reach the final bell. The sixth round developed as a non-stop trade of left hooks, both men swinging without pause. Castillo found repeated success with body shots, but it wasn't enough to push Corrales back. Chico would soak up the punishment and fire back, intent on winning every exchange. But taking one to give one has obvious risks, and Corrales' chin had been cracked before. In the closing seconds, Castillo connected with a sharp pair of uppercuts that put Corrales on skates, desperately returning fire as his legs could barely support him.
So he's going to start putting on the pressure a little bit, Diego, but you got to suck it up right here, baby. This is what's going to separate the two of us right here, Diego. You understand?
Going into the second half of the fight, both men knew their paths to victory. Diego started well, throwing his jab and landing a series of blistering right hands. But old habits die hard, and Castillo dragged him back into close quarters. His constant body shots on the inside had finally begun to force signs of wear on his opponent. Just as José started to take over, Corrales rallied like a wounded animal. Moments before the bell, Corrales landed a counter left hook that buckled Castillo's knees, putting him inches away from the canvas. Both faces in the corner showed signs of battle, neither aware that the most memorable stage of their fight was still to come. If it wasn't for the legendary final round that cemented this contest in the history books, the eighth likely would have been celebrated as the finest of the year. Corrales, undeterred by the grotesque swelling under his left eye, emerged from his corner, throwing with conviction, finding Castillo with sharp combinations that nearly dusted his granite-chinned opponent. Castillo would stand his ground, land his own shots, and fight his way out of danger every time.
What could they possibly have left in the tank as this fight continues to unfold? We're into round 8, past the midway point. The action just never lets up.
The crowd's roar swelled with each swing of momentum. Diego hurt, then Castillo. Diego rallying, hurt again. Both men trading to the limits of endurance. A combination from Castillo would knock Diego's mouthpiece out, only for Diego to rock Castillo as he tried to press the advantage. An exchange that ominously foreshadowed what was to come. Heading into the 9th round, everybody watching knew they were viewing something special. Where most fighters slowed down in exhaustion, Corrales and Castillo seemed to draw energy from mutual pain. The pace didn't break as sweat and blood smeared their faces and painted the ring. Neither man gave thought to health nor safety as they locked in a punch-for-punch duel. The 10th round of Corrales vs. Castillo is regarded by many as the wildest round in modern boxing. After 9 rounds of brutal punishment, for the first time all night, a knockdown would be scored. Just moments into the opening stages, Castillo lunged with a left hook that sent Diego Corrales crashing to the floor. Mouthpiece spat onto the canvas. The crowd's roars turned to boos as Corrales stood at the count of 8, receiving extra time to rinse and replace his gum shield. From the restart, Castillo pressed as any great fighter should, landing his left hook over and over until Chico's legs betrayed him again. Corrales found himself on the deck once more and obviously removed his mouthpiece to buy a few extra seconds. As a punishment, Tony Weeks took a point, widening the round to 10-6, making a comeback on the cards impossible and giving Diego just enough time to get his wits about him. Goosen calmly cleaned his gear, and with the coldest of manners, gave his charge one last instruction. As Castillo came in for the finish and punched Corrales into the ropes, Diego found the space to land a right hand and a crushing left hook to the chin that immediately backed Castillo up. Sensing the shift, Chico Corrales unleashed the last of his strength in a blur of punches, driving Castillo across the ring and right into a series of hooks that forced Tony Weeks to jump in and stop the fight.
Castillo's in trouble! Weeks steps in, and the fight is over! Corrales with a remarkable dramatic turnaround to win this fight!
Even in defeat, after enduring a storm that few would have survived, Jose Luis Castillo's streak of never being dropped remained intact.
Diego Corrales said he would go through hell before losing this fight. He may have.
But neither man left the ring that night unscathed. Talk of a rematch began before the swelling had even faded, and every voice involved warned against it. The brutality of their first encounter had been so complete that any logical instinct said, let the legend be, and let the fighters heal. But money almost always trumps logic in boxing, and the promise of another war proved too great. The inevitable rematch came just 5 months later. This time, however, Castillo missed weight by more than 3 pounds, coming in looking suspiciously fresh and scored a brutal knockout victory in the 4th round. Some called it revenge for the mouthpiece. Others saw a man come in heavy against an opponent still recovering from their first war. Corrales never won another fight. The battle on May 7th, 2005, and everything that followed had taken its toll on his body. On May 7th, 2007, exactly 2 years from his greatest triumph, Diego Corrales passed away in a high-speed motorcycle accident on a Las Vegas street at the age of 29. The date that had once represented his glory became a marker of loss. For all the complexity of Corrales' life, all the controversy that followed, the memory of that first war with Castillo remains untarnished. It stands as a reminder of what the sport can produce when two fighters push beyond their limits, and a testament to the kind of courage that results in nights that will be remembered for all time. For the Modern Martial Artist, this has been Coby Mckinley, wishing you happy training.